Hey there, this is Pat Ennis of Ennis Legacy Partners. Welcome to the Exit Readiness Podcast. Co-host Walter Dials at the beach today, so won't be joining us. Our mission here on the podcast is to provide you, the business owner, with subject matter expertise on topics pertaining to building transferable or sellable business value, and then for planning your eventual exit from the business. We want to help you build a business that's transferable and then exit successfully on your own terms and conditions. One of our current clients has built a very successful landscaping business here in the Washington, D.C. area over the last 40 years or so. And his business is characterized by employee satisfaction, engagement, retention of employees, strong brand reputation, and customer loyalty. He's a principled man that makes wise decisions. And that results in stakeholder confidence and the long-term financial stability of the company and any sustained growth through the roughest of times over the last 40 years. And as we've gotten to know him and his business, we would point to, and he would agree, that his success in business over the last number of decades has much to do with what we would call values-based leadership. He has clearly established grounded personal values or guiding principles that daily, weekly, monthly, yearly inform how he leads and manages his business. And so hence his management team has these same values. And our client's experience aligns with research studies that suggest businesses with strong values-based cultures can outperform competitors up to 20% in financial returns over time, resulting in a more transferable or sellable business. And then hence, of course, more exit options for the owner. So our topic today is building a transferable business with values-based leadership. And specifically, how values inform business and leadership decisions, and how to tell when there's a disconnect between your stated values and the way you operate your business, hiring processes, performance management, et cetera, et cetera. And we have again with us today one of our strategic partners, Sarah Goelitz. Sarah's a management consultant and trainer who specializes in helping business leaders develop their management skill set during crucial business transitions like exit. She combines years of expertise and experience in creating and leading high-performing teams with deep experience in product and process development, and she trains business owners. She now works with us to train business owners and managers and successors to master the both and numbers-based success metrics and empathetic people leadership. So, Sarah, welcome back. It's always good to have you with us.
Thanks, Pat. It's great to be here today.
Yes, I believe, Sarah, tell me if you agree, that one of the many reasons that we work well together as strategic partners is this shared conviction around the importance of values-based leadership. Corby and I both think it's foundational for a business, or any enterprise for that matter, nonprofit, for-profit, it doesn't matter, to grow, flourish, and prosper long-term. And so let's get started. Let's start the conversation with your big picture thoughts and convictions about values-based leadership. Why do you think it's critical for organizational health and success, and for anything else that you think it's critical for?
Absolutely. I so agree with you that values-based leadership is so foundational for a business. But I think the phrase values-based leadership can sometimes sound complicated to people. They think like, how would I implement that? It sounds like a huge process. And, I also talk to some business leaders who occasionally will feel like values-based leadership sounds soft or wishy-washy or something. But in fact, values-based leadership just means being very clear on what you stand for. That's really all it is. It's knowing what your true north is. And the reason that's so important is that, running a business and then exiting that business It's a little like doing an overland point to point hike without a consistent trail. Like, you're here, you have to get there. You are going to have to make a whole series of decisions, and you may have some guidance for those decisions, but you won't have a manual. There's not always going to be like this tidy, clear road sign right when you need it that says go this direction. But if you know what you stand for, you'll know where your true north is, and you'll be able to work off of that compass point and make confident and clear decisions. And confident and clear decisions are what's going to fuel your business success and a successful exit as well.
Yep. Okay, that's well said. And I like that. I like maybe changing the vernacular from values-based leadership, which indeed to not a few owners, I think that sounds soft. They'd rather focus on revenue and team building and profits, which are all things they have to be focused on. But a lot of times, this values-based leadership isn't thought of as frequently or as consistently as these other things that business leaders and owners need to think about. So knowing what you stand for. So how does knowing what you stand for or your core values inform business and leadership decisions, or how should they? Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, one reason knowing what you stand for is can inform, and one way that it really should inform your business decisions is getting the right people on the bus and keeping them there. If you know what you stand for, you can attract and invite people who share those values and share that clarity. If what you stand for is vague or undefined, you can end up with some key people on your bus who actually have fundamental differences with you. And it could be that neither of you even realizes it. And that can lead to conflict that happens at the worst time. It happens when you did not see it coming. And so being clear on what you stand for and being able to communicate that to people you want to bring on board or the leaders you have on board is just tremendously important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how can an owner tell or discern when there's a disconnect? What kind of things start to go sideways when there's a disconnect between the stated values and the way the owner is actually operating? So there may be stated values, just like there's a stated mission statement or vision on the website. Maybe there's a list of values there too. How can we know if there's a disconnect between what's on the website and what's actually happening in day-to-day operations of the business?
Oh, absolutely. I love you talking about having the list of values on the website. I work with businesses with a big poster on the wall that says, there's a poster for the mission, there's a poster for the vision, there's a poster for these are our business values. And I always tell them that's fantastic. I am so glad that this statement of what you stand for is front and center for your customers to see on your website, for your employees to see on the wall. That's great. Let's just not stop there. Let's keep going and make sure that this is really and truly implemented at every level of your company, every level of your leadership, and every level of your systems. And the first step to diagnosing if there's a disconnect is actually really clearly defining what your values mean and what they'll look like in practice. Like, would you be able to tell if they were violated? So, I work with a lot of folks who say, well, one of our core values is integrity. That's wonderful. I love it. I share that value as well. It's a fantastic word. If we don't work on defining it can be actually a little vague. There can be a lot of different things that integrity, that word, might stand for. So you might say, for instance, what we mean by integrity here in this business is we interact with every customer with honesty, and we make sure that every deal we close with the customer is truly beneficial to them, right? Like, that's our definition. Every business might have a slightly different definition of how integrity comes to life in their business. And then I was like, cool, what's an example of that? How does that come to life? When did you see it in the last 6 months? I often ask, so if a documentary film crew were on site and they were filming, what would they capture when they found integrity? What would it look like? Might look like, well, we accidentally overcharged a customer and they paid us the overcharged amount without realizing it. And when we realized it, we refunded them the difference right away. That's what integrity looks like. Now I have something I can work with. Say, all right, let's see. Is that coming to life in this company? Are there places where there might be a disconnect? So once you've defined it, you can a whole lot more easily spot it. The second thing is, there's a crucial step that's often overlooked when it comes to defining and implementing what you stand for in business, and that is setting up a feedback mechanism so that you will know if or when there's a disconnect. And crucially, you actually need to know if you are the one introducing the disconnect without realizing it. I've seen that happen sometimes, and there are really few things more damaging to a business owner's credibility than having a big poster about their values on the wall and then violating them often without realizing it and then not repairing the damage. So everyone's human. None of us are going to live up to our true north all the time. That's fine, but you can't repair what you don't know about. And so I always advise, create a feedback mechanism, have some standards in place so that when anybody at your company says, I'm not sure that's actually in line with our core values, that's a safe conversation to have. There's not any punishment for bringing that up and asking the question, that there's a way to pause and examine and say, all right, let's move forward, or actually we're fine with this. But you have to be able to have that open conversation so that you know, and you know what to repair if you need to.
Yeah, as you know, we talk a lot about exposing reality and just having systems in place to make sure that you're doing that in order to have the right strategic plan in place for whatever you want a strategic plan for, growth, exit, whatever it is, and then be able to execute on it. Well, if it's on the website that we value transparency, we value open and honest communication, and then you've got a team that says, okay, I'm all in on that. I'm going to give you my honest feedback. And yet the owner who's put the values up on the website responds in maybe a not so positive or inviting or easily approachable way. What kind of damage can be done there in regard to employee engagement, satisfaction, retention, or anything else? What kind of damage can be done if the boss, they're not seeing the boss live out what is actually on the website?
Yeah, it does happen, and it's always unintentional. No boss sets out to say, I'm going to say one thing and then not live out that way in front of my employees. But if it happens even accidentally, you essentially create two bubbles that are disconnected from each other. You've got the reality on the ground that your employees are aware of and probably talking about amongst themselves. And then you've got the separate bubble, which is things they tell you. And that's actually a pretty terrifying place to be as a boss, to not be receiving clear, current information from your employees. And it's worth repairing if you think that might have happened.
Yeah. And the repairing can be tough, right? It can be hard to do. How can we minimize those situations from a process perspective? How can we minimize those situations where there has been damage done and we have to repair it?
Yeah, I love that question.
Maybe with the hiring process. You want to talk a little bit about that and how, knowing what you stand for or your values are so very important when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, for sure. We talked about how if you know what you stand for, you can invite people who also stand for that to come join you. And some real tactical ways that I always suggest that folks go about that is, for instance, when you publish a job description because you're hiring, or even if you share it privately with someone that you are having maybe back channel talks with, what you stand for as a business and as a leader should have a prominent place in that job description. And when you have conversations and job interviews, I always advise, have a list of questions or topics you're going to talk about with every candidate. And that list should include what you stand for, core values as a business. What does this person think about that? What are some stories, some examples of ways they have implemented them in their business and their leadership? Has it ever informed a difficult decision they had to make? Maybe that was high stakes. Well, how did it come to life for them? And then you have information. You can start to diagnose how this might work. If you think that you have people already on your bus who maybe aren't fully aligned with what's, your true north, what you stand for, it can be helpful to just kind of have what I often call a reset conversation. Hey, I'd like to talk about what's important here. I realize that maybe I haven't communicated this as clearly, but it's important to us that we really, these values that are on the poster on the wall, that we implement them in our work here and in our leadership. Here's some examples of what that looks like. Can you get on board with, is that something that you feel like you can sign up for? And that can help with making sure that everybody's aligned and is heading towards the same true north.
Yeah, let's talk about efficiency too in regard to decision making, because increased efficiency across the organization with systems, processes, however you're going to do it, technology, and in this case, values-based leadership, increased efficiency, of course, lends toward a more sellable or transferable business, and then hence more options for exit. How does values-based leadership produce decision-making that's more efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk to some business owners who one of their greatest frustrations is they feel like my employees are always asking me for my input on stuff that I don't feel like they should need my input on. And it slows me down because I'm answering all these questions, and it slows them down because they're not acting quickly. One of the things that your values or what you stand for can help with that is everyone has a matrix to work through. In XYZ situation, what is the step of, for instance, integrity? What is the step of transparency? Well, I would default to that. And it can make those decisions happen just a whole lot faster at every level of your company. And then you are not getting stuck in these endless, well, what should I do? And this person said that, and I don't know, and I guess I should ask again. If we could just slow everyone down and create that inefficiency. I'm curious, Pat, what you think about that. What have you seen some processes that works?
It increases internal efficiency with internal customers, if you will, but also with your customers, external. I was leading an organization one time, and everyone knew clearly what the values were, and the receptionist got a phone call one day from a customer. And the customer was asking for something, and the receptionist didn't know if what they were asking for she could do or we could do for her. And on that particular day, I don't know, I was having a management offsite or something, but she could not find a manager anywhere to help her make this decision. But she knew this. She knew that one of our core values was generosity, and especially toward our customers. And so she said to the customer, yes, you go ahead and do that. What you want to do, you can do it. And then we'll get back to you later if there's any issues going forward. Well, I got letters or emails from the customer, how ecstatic they were with that kind of service and so on and so forth. And it was very efficient. Customer loved us even more. And she actually did tell them that they could do something that they couldn't do. But that was okay because she did what we would want her to do. She made the decision on the spot, served the customer. We had a happy customer. One of the managers just had to call the customer back and say, in the future, we need to do it this way, but you're fine and all. So there was an efficiency about it, but then too, it lent toward customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, customer retention, but then it also resulted in that employee feeling empowered. And so hence a fruit of that, good fruit, can be employee satisfaction. I feel empowered in my job. I can make decisions on the spot. And so, but she was clear on what we stood for, the guiding principles, the core values. And so she was able to make that decision on the spot. So let's talk too, in the time that we have left, more about this building a transferable or sellable business. In my opening comments, I mentioned the business owner that we're working with, that you're involved with too, and how, they've got strong employee engagement, satisfaction, retention, strong brand reputation. Uh, they're bankable. Uh, they've sustained growth through the roughest of times, and a lot of it has to do with this man who owns the company. He has strong, clear values that have been fostered throughout the organization. What are some of your other thoughts about that? About how, if you're committed to and have conviction about fostering what you stand for throughout the systems of your organization, how's it going to help you build a business that's going to be more attractive to a potential buyer, or investor?
Mm-hmm. I think of it like, imagine that you have built a house and you are now thinking about potentially selling the house. Which kind of house is going to be more attractive to a buyer? The house where it's a little bit slapped together, like it works, it's dry inside, the roof is watertight, but the beams sometimes are maybe a little loose and it's not totally clear, maybe there's an extra staircase somewhere, versus a house where everything is tight and organized. Every single beam is screwed tightly to the next one. The path through the home is clear. As a buyer, I would absolutely want the house where it is tightly organized and held together. And what you stand for, if it is implemented clearly throughout your organization, that creates an organization that's tightly held together and can operate in sync, can operate in unison. People can make decisions clearly and efficiently. Policies are fairly straightforward because they align with what the company stands for. Hiring is straightforward. Feedback and performance management is straightforward because it's all aligned to essentially your architectural plan that you have put together for the business. I don't know what you would. I'd much rather buy the second house.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we're closing, let's do this. Let's try to give listeners 3 steps. If they've listened today and they think, yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense. Actually, it's not the first time I've heard about this. I've read it in books, and I know I need to do something about it. I don't know that I'm really strong in this yet. And I see where it makes a lot of sense. Would you have 1, 2, 3 steps that they could take today to get started, to make sure that they are strong in this?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it, like I mentioned earlier, this does not need to be a multi-month project. You can do this in a straightforward kind of minimum viable way for the business that you have. So if you have a list of values for your business, take 15 minutes and for each one of those values, write down one example of what it looks like in practice. Just one for each of those bullet points. And then you'll have even just a little bit more clearer sense of what does this look like? What am I looking for in my own leadership and in the way that my business operates? That's one thing. Just write down one example for each. Another thing is, if you are currently hiring, take that list of values and drop it into your job descriptions. Let the people that you are looking for self-select in or out. And that's one way to help them. This hopefully is a copy and paste of what already exists into a job description document. Again, it doesn't have to be hugely complicated. Third, if you have a performance review process of some kind that happens at your company, whether quarterly or annually, whatever it is, take a look at whatever form you're using for that, or whatever process, and find one place, just one place to start. where you could take one or more of your business values and add them to your review process. Maybe it's a question of like, how did this employee demonstrate one or more of the business values this year in their work? Just make that simple and straightforward. I think you'll be surprised at what kind of conversations and clearer decision making will come from just doing those few things.
Thanks for joining me today. You're a regular, and you'll continue to be. It's great working with you and serving clients and this and so many other things. And, listeners, we, with Sarah, have created a joint program. It's called Exit Readiness Next Level. And Sarah, you want to take a minute or two and just describe what we do with that particular program?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are here to help make sure that your management team, the leaders under you, are operating at a high level of excellence so that you can have a successful exit. We would never want you to be in a place where you're exiting, and as you walk away, the layer under you is actually not able to withstand the pressure of what they're going to be called on during that business transition. So that's what we do in Next Level. And yeah, if that sounds interesting, we'd love to talk to you about it. But if you're considering an exit and you want to make sure that your values are clear and that they are transmitted down into your company via your management team, we'd love to talk. You can set up a call. We'll talk about like some ways to diagnose what's going on currently, maybe some action steps for you to consider implementing in your business so that you make sure the leadership that supports you is upholding and implementing what you stand for. So you can schedule that at ennislp.com/build-value. And I would love to chat with you about that.
Yeah, fantastic. You can reach out to Sarah directly too at sarah@ennislp.com. And listeners, if you want help with this, what we talked about today, values-based leadership, strengthening your management team, which is an absolutely critical driver of value for a sellable or transferable business, maximizing the value of your business or planning for that eventual exit. You can reach Sarah and myself and the team at Ennis Legacy Partners through our website at ennislp.com or exitreadiness.com. And please, if you've benefited from today's episode, please consider subscribing it. We have a lot of listeners, it seems, that download. Our subscriber population is growing slowly. So when you listen to it, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. And then share it too on social media if you've benefited from it. So thank you for listening. And until next time on the Exit Readiness Podcast, this is Pat Ennis with Sarah Goelitz signing off.